I'm Egbert, the owner of this station. Check out my website at egbert.com. That's EGGBURT, egbert.com. Now it's back to Brad and John. Check out their website at bjshow.co. The BJ Show? Come on, guys. Anyway, here's B and J.
Some of these protesters hold up signs proclaiming gays for Gaza. They might as well hold up signs saying chickens for KFC.
You know, people make fun of Netanyahu, and what was it, last week or over the weekend, they tried to, the Hezbollah people tried to blow up his vacation home. I mean, you know, this has just gotten crazy. You know, this whole, and the crazy part about this is what, if I were running the Trump campaign, you know what I'd be saying every single day?
Would you like fries with that?
No, that is funny though. Every single day, if I were Trump, I'd stand up there and I go, 4 years ago, there were no problems in the Middle East. 4 years ago, there was no attack on Israel. Then there was no counterattack on the Palestinians in Gaza. There was no attack on the Hezbollah people in Lebanon. And you know, there was nothing going on. The world was at peace. Inflation was 1.3%. Gasoline was blah, blah, blah. And just keep saying that time and time and time again. You know, but yet, no, he's got to go make French fries.
Well, and I don't mean to be glib, Brad, but when I saw what happened to Netanyahu, I sent a page to one of my friends over there, but I never heard back from him.
I don't know if I want to know the rest of that story. Hold on a minute.
He said, hit me on my hip. And I was like, okay. I mean, I knew that means to send him a page, but.
Okay. I found this interesting. I saw this just on a page I don't even know what I was looking at, and it talked about the fact that nobody in the mainstream press will cover the years that Kamala spent in Canada. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Interesting. Yeah. So you've told the story, and I know most of this just because of you, Brad. So she was in Montreal for a few years, right?
Well, here's what's interesting. Guess what high school she graduated from?
Let's see. The Expos School of Andre Dawson Outfielding.
She graduated from the Westmount High School. She went there from 1978 to 1981. Her classmates described her as extremely bright with a promising future. Guess where Westmont High School is?
No idea.
Montreal.
Okay.
She graduated from Canadian high school. She moved there when she was 13, and she graduated from high school when she was 18. Now, why? Have you ever heard anybody say that?
No, I haven't heard much about that.
Don't you think that's sort of interesting because of the fact that to me it's to the point where like, okay, because to me, my mind's eye, she's talking about, I grew up in Oakland and, and people had a nice lawn. And well, essentially, let's say those years of your life from 13 to 18, weren't they pretty formative lives?
They were
formative years.
Brad.
I mean, weren't those the years that essentially by the time you were 13, essentially, with John, he'd already been, post-puberty for 10 years because John matured at like 3 years old.
Far from it.
Right.
Go ahead, Brad.
Okay, but the idea being is you look back and you say, wow, I remember middle school, or back in the day we called it junior high, and man, I did this and I did that, and then I went to high school and I changed a little bit, and by the time I graduated from high school I changed a lot, and you know what I mean.
It's formative, but sorry to interrupt, Brad, but maybe that's, I'm guessing that part of Montreal isn't relatable and doesn't fit into a political narrative. And then you add the fact when you mention Oakland, when she originally told Willie Brown that he was her first Westmount.
I'm not going to touch that.
That she had never, ever mounted anything until she did the Westmount.
Okay, this is an article from the Montreal Gazette, okay? And I'm not making this up. This is actually online. You can look at it if you want. And it talks about she moved to the city as a teen so her mother, Kamala Gopalan, a breast cancer researcher, could work at the Lady Davis Institute of Montreal's Jewish General Hospital. Harris enrolled at Westmont after an initial stint at French language school. Dr. Michael Pollack, who worked with Gopalan in Montreal, described her in a note published on McGill University's website as a pioneer who left a mark in the institution, having developed a method of assessing. This is talking about her mother. While Harris's biography on the White House website doesn't mention her time in Montreal, she later recalled fondly her years there in 2021, with a Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, according to a summary of the conversation known as a readout. Former classmates described Harris and her sister Maya as good students with promising futures. Quote, they were so extremely bright, intelligent people, they were just so smart, former classmate Trevor Harris told the Canadian press in 2020. In a 1981 yearbook, Harris described her favorite pastime as dancing with midnight magic. That's a dance troupe she founded with her friend Wanda Kagan, who remembers the two of them performing at community centers and at fundraisers. Okay, the English Montreal School Board issued a statement congratulating Harris on becoming vice president-elect in 2020 that included a photo of students holding up hand-drawn posters reading, "Congratulations, Kamala, class of 81. More recently, as vice president, Harris had had several meetings and conversation with Trudeau. In the same 2021 call in which she reminisced about her time in Montreal, Harris offered assurances the Biden administration, quote, would do everything it can to secure the release of then-imprisoned Canadians Michael Korvig and Michael Spavor. According to a readout, the two Canadians were released later that year. A readout, I guess is that a press release in Canadian speak or something like that? Because they keep using that word, a readout. You there, John? I think I lost John. Did John?
I'm sorry. No, I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah. I believe that's just another way of saying like a bulletin.
Okay. Item number 2 to discuss. All of a sudden, on local radio, I'm hearing these commercials for your old employer.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Are they about the need to fight for tools and fighting weed management?
No, it's sort of like fuzzy image kind of stuff. Oh, Bear, isn't it great? We're a great company. We do all sorts of great things.
Nice.
Are they having another PR crisis, or what's the reason for this?
I mean, so I think layoffs are hitting, and so I think it's a good time for the company. I didn't know about this campaign, actually, Brad. I'm surprised by that. What station did you hear it on?
I heard it on 97.1. I believe I heard it on WIL as well too, because I punch buttons and stuff like that, and they're just like 30-second. They got a dude announcer on there, and he's talking about, once again, this is the problem, is if you said to me, I've heard the ad, I think at least 2 or 3, I maybe have heard it three times. And if you put a gun to my head and say, okay, what are they talking about? I can't really tell you, because it didn't really make an indelible mark in my brain. If they would have said, hey, Bear, we're the company behind the aspirin, but more than aspirin, we're also the company behind, Monsanto's, Roundup. I go, okay, I'd remember that. But it was sort of like a touchy-feely kind of ad. Aren't we great? Aren't we wonderful? Aren't you glad that Bear's around? That kind of thing. If I can find one of the ads, there are a couple different services where I can go online and I can find ads that are running on other radio stations. I'll see if I can find that one. I'll send it to you. Or maybe I'll play it here in the air for your feedback on that. I was just curious if you haven't heard that then.
Yeah, I haven't. In fact, I'm surprised. So I haven't heard anything about that. And so I would just point out that, excuse me, it's always a good idea to try to package feel-good stuff and supportive stuff when you're going through a tough time. Like we mentioned, Brad, the company mentioned investments and right out here in Chesterfield in some of the new greenhouses. Now, without violating any documents I may or may not have signed about disclosure things, there's been a whole lot of capital investment, let's say, plans going on. I used to do communications for R&D, which includes our Chesterfield site. So I would presume, Brad, that there have been some long-term plans about investing in R&D facilities, but you hold on to some of that news until a really tough time, so that when you're going through a hard time, you say, hey, okay, so we're doing layoffs and we're selling Creve Coeur campus, but did we mention we're investing a lot of money in Chesterfield? So let's focus on that right now, okay? Let's not focus on the gloomy stuff. Let's talk about the fact that we're going to be reinvesting in some of those greenhouses out there. So, and it's also good, Brad, and you know this very well, but it's also I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday about some radio campaigns, some really good radio campaigns I've seen over the years. And you want to have, what in the industry, or at least in PR, we would call air cover. So if you're going through a hard time as a company, ideally an employee would be driving into the office and turn the radio on and hear a Bear commercial that makes them feel good. And then they pick up a hard copy of the Post-Dispatch and they see a positive story about what you're doing about sustainability. And on the drive home, they see a Bear billboard that says that we believe Bear STL. We believe in St. Louis. We're here. You want to run air cover for employee support, especially when you're slashing jobs and you have a terrible disposition and a terrible mental state of your employees at the moment.
It's funny you should mention that because I've seen this pop up. I know I pass this one from time to time on 170. There's a picture of a bunch of people on there, and it says, "We are STL," and it's for Anheuser-Busch. And it's the same kind of deal. I guess they're trying to say, hey, we're really a local company. Even though we moved all the executives to New York, we're really a local company, right? Isn't that what they're saying?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And, you know, and folks who have done communications before on any level will know that part of so much of what that is the internal communications of boosting employee morale. And that's for retention, too. And again, Brett, I can't say it enough. When you're a company that's slashing jobs and people are worried about going from having a huge bonus to maybe not even having a job, you want to do everything you can to spend money to generate that support. Bayer, and this is public, this isn't, I'm not leaking any inside information, but Bayer boosted some morale of their employees last week. They had a Harvest Fest, Brad. This is according to Instagram. Not any inside information, but guess who they brought in to cheer everybody's spirits up last week, Brad?
The Cohen guy?
No, that's a good guess, though. Former Cardinals and former Atlanta Braves relief pitcher Al Hrabosky made an appearance on campus.
The good old man Hungarian himself, huh?
Yeah. So that's kind of a nice deal. You know, Bayer is a sponsor of the Cardinals. So if you're an employee and you go to Busch Stadium and you wonder how many millions were spent on the sponsorship when your friends are losing their jobs. You put that aside for a minute and you think, wait a minute, we might get, as part of a Legends contract, Al Hrabosky to spend an hour on campus taking pictures with people.
Do you know one of my clients, he retired, Gus Beffa, the general manager for, hold on, let me clear my voice here. Anyway, Gus Beffa, the general manager for Chris Offenberg Ford Lincoln in Washmo, he was a dead ringer for Al Hrabosky. And he talked about how
That's great.
He'd go into bars and hey, Al, you know, it's on us, buddy. You know, he'd get free drinks all the time and stuff like that.
Incredible. That's
right.
Great. I like Al Hrabosky. First of all, he's what the kids these days call a short king. You know, like he's a man of small stature, and I don't know. I just think he's hilarious when you watch old Al Hrabosky clips. I'll always have a soft spot for him. Okay. Probably not the greatest announcer. Could we agree that he's probably not the greatest announcer, but he was at least fun to listen to?
He was serviceable. You know, I liked the fact that he had the inside knowledge, and he was sort of, you know, he was him. It wasn't a phony baloney. It was him.
True. That's true. And he didn't put on a firefighter uniform and pose for pictures with a gay guy.
Right. Okay. I want to throw something at you, and I want to see if you know the answer to my question. Okay, over the weekend, I'm listening to NPR. I should stay away from that because it's always to the point where, and they have this woman talking about how if Trump gets elected, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen, and she says they're going to monitor pregnancies, and they're going to have a database of what women are pregnant, and she says, this was not a local show, this is on the national, and she says they're already tracking menstrual cycles in Missouri. Okay, John, here's a story right up your alley, so to speak. Is there really a database of women's menstrual cycles being tracked in Missouri?
This is a great internet meme from 5 years ago, Brad. Yes, I'm glad you brought this up. So, under a guy named Randall Williams, who was the former head of DHSS, I believe there was a survey in which women could fill out information about the last time they essentially the last time they had their period, and it was on some sort of a form that was collected at doctors' offices, and it was some form of a survey. I don't remember all the details, so I don't want to get in too deep because I don't have the knowledge there, Brad. But very quickly, opponents of Republicans said, can you believe that the state wants to track your menstrual cycle? How horrible is that? So, of course, it was a gross distortion, but it's one of those things that's like, I'll draw another parallel. A few years ago, there was a mini controversy about a dress code in the Missouri legislature. And, you know, it's ripe for the MSNBC crowd to be like, can you believe Republicans are trying to tell women what to wear? But yeah, I mean, obviously the state does not have a database of menstrual cycles, but it's one of those things that if you're an angry cat lady, you're going to hear this and you're going to buy into it and be like, yeah, that's right. Backwards Missouri is tracking our periods. I haven't had one since the Carter administration, but I'm mad about it anyway.
But see, here's what I got from that. I thought to myself, okay, I got to talk to John about this. And it's interesting. You know the story behind that. That was 5 years ago, and there's no database where you could go into the secret database of Jefferson City and say, oh, Susie Smith, well, is her menstrual cycle? When does it start? There's no database like that.
And actually, let me interrupt, Brad. I know we're at the end of time here, but I just looked it up. It was October of 2019 that there was a database, or there was a spreadsheet in which they gathered information that included pieces of information included women's menstrual cycles. I don't know. I guess it came from Planned Parenthood visits. And part of the questionnaire, the survey involved, like, okay, when was the last time you had your period, or your period's regular, or whatever. Well, so of course this is just a thing that fits in with the left-wing narrative about an oppressive state.
Well, but hold on a minute. It was gathered by Planned Parenthood?
Yeah, I guess because Planned Parenthood for a long time got state money. So I'm guessing that as part of the data that Planned Parenthood collected from patients, part of it included asking the question, when was your last menstrual cycle?
So here's a woman on NPR dissing Planned Parenthood? What's wrong with that picture?
Didn't get her talking points.
Yes, what's wrong with that picture? How's that possible?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
We have to take a break. Our final cycle.
Whoa, Brad!
I can't believe I just said that. I slipped the word.
Who are you, a 42-year-old woman talking about your final cycle?
Yeah.
It's, they have it early sometimes, Brad. It's called perimenopause. Look it up.
Here you go, John. John's, the women are out there going like, oh, that John, he's so good. He just loves us so much.
Oh,
he loves all those women out there.
I'm not on the market for you girls. Go ahead.
He's so complimentary of us.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?